Hello everyone and welcome to Into the Books. I'm Irene Riderelli and this video that we are going to start is very special for me. It's about the books that were, in my opinion, a must-read to pretty much for every millennial in the world like me. I'm very excited, not only because this first video is basically the launch of my YouTube channel, but also because I will be rediscovering with you some of the books that marked my adolescence. So I thought it would be a good idea to make a sort of then and now comparison between the most popular books when I was a teenager and some current books that might be considered appropriate for such comparison because of their subject matter. Maybe, thanks to this video, some of you will discover the existence of some of the series that I will talk about. But if instead you have read the current book and you're not sure if you want to give the then book a chance, I hope I can help you make a decision. Let's get started. The first series I will discuss, and the one that everyone was talking about when I was a teenager, is Twilight by Stephenie Meyer. Some of you may have seen the films without having read the books, but if you're curious about the details of Bella and Edward's love story, I highly recommend reading the books. I suggest it because the films will never be able to faithfully portray the growth, the pain and the struggles the two main characters went through. First, let me tell you a little bit about Twilight, and then I will tell you about the current book, which I believe is the counterpart to the comparison. It all begins with Bella, who has just moved to Forks, Washington, the wettest city in the United States. This is an important detail because it was fundamental to the Cullen family's decision-making process. Bella is a young girl who lived in Phoenix with her mother and loved the sunshine of the city, so when she is forced to move to Forks, she feels terrible. She's sure her life would be miserable, and it might have been if she hadn't seen Edward sitting in the school cafeteria with his friends on her first day at the new school. He and his group ignore her, not caring that she is the new kid in town, and it is this indifference to her that prompts Bella to observe the mysterious group more closely. What she notices almost immediately is the undeniable ethereal beauty of all the members of the group and their extreme pallor. The initial cold and distant attitude that Edward reserved for Bella is nothing more than his way of coping with the initial shock that the girl's appearance causes in him. So far, Edward has managed to keep his secret well hidden, but Bella is determined to find it out. What she doesn't know is that the closer she gets to him, the more her life is in danger. I'm not going to go into more detail because it's up to you if you want to know more, but I hope you trust me if I tell you that when this series came out, the excitement was huge, and in a way, it had earned it. Of course, we can't compare Twilight to The Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, but Twilight signified a turning point in the fantasy genre, and if today we have ACOTAR, Of Blood and Ashes, The Fourth Wing, and so on, it's because these books follow the path that Twilight placed. But if you are a Twilight reader looking for something more current, but in the same vein as this one, I highly suggest you give Scarlett St. Clair's King of Battle and Blood a chance. Isolde, the protagonist, is fierce, unmarried, and the sole heiress to the kingdom of Lara. Due to her strong personality, her chances of finding a royal to marry are very slim. Besides this is the fact that Kingdom's male population is dwindling because of the vampires, the same ones her father had invited to his lands to negotiate a truce. Their king, Adrian Vasiliev of Rebecca, better known as the Blood King, has the reputation to be a monster, impossible to destroy, much less to kill. When Adrian agrees to protect Lara's people, he only asks for one thing, or rather, one person, Isolde. To save the lives of her people, including her father's, she must marry the Blood King. Now she has the opportunity to make her people's dream come true, to kill the beast. But is that what Isolde really wants? Or maybe she will learn that often the villain is not as villain as is portrayed. It changes from the point of view of the person telling the story. Both series talk about vampires. The only difference is that Twilight is set in our times and King of Battle and Blood in the ancient times. But let's move on to our second comparison. The series I'm going to talk about first has literally revolutionized the entire reading landscape by eliminating erotic overtones. If you thought I was talking about 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James, yes, you got that right. When the first book in this series came out, it really shook up the world's bestseller lists. But let me explain what I mean. The protagonists are Anastasia Steele, better known as Hannah, and Christian Grey, a billionaire undeniably handsome and full of dark and deep secrets. They met because Anna's best friend has a bad cold and cannot attend the scheduled interview with Christian, so she asks Anastasia to take her place. When the young woman meets the man, she is captivated by his handsomeness and almost subjugated. It is for this reason, and also because she didn't make a good impression when she entered Christian's office and fell down in front of him, all she wants is the interview to be over as soon as possible. When she returns home, she tries to hide from her friend that she finds Christian attractive, because she knows that what she feels is nothing more than a crush. A man of his caliber would never be interested in a woman who is in her last year of college, has no social status, let alone an adventurous life. So she goes on with her simple life, but what she doesn't suspect is that she has captured Christian's attention very much indeed. He wants her, but not in the way that she would like him to. Christian is not at all interested in a romantic relationship with her. All he wants is sex, and not even in the traditional way. Christian has a red room in which he has everything he needs to satisfy his dark desires. Anna doesn't know what to do. If she wants to have a relationship with him, she has to sign a confidentiality agreement, give up the idea of living with him a normal relationship, and become a sex toy. The more Anna resists, the closer Christian gets. Now you can understand why this book made such an impact when it was published. The very graphic description of bondage, erotic sex, and perversions were not so common to find in a book at that time. The huge success of this series led to the films a few years later. Unfortunately, I lost the books of this series in a house move, and it honestly weighed heavily on me to have misplaced them because this was a series I really enjoyed. I thought hard and long about the current series that could be compared to 50 Shades of Grey, and many titles came to my mind, but I finally chose Hunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton because I think it is the closest to 50 Shades of Grey. When I first read this book, I was shocked because I was not prepared for what I found there. The story is too dark and at times it even borders on sadism. Adeline, the protagonist, has a stalker just like her great-grandmother. Adeline's stalker is Zed, who is sure she will fall in love once he reveals his real nature. Bizarrely, Adeline's great-grandmother also fell in love with her stalker before she was killed. This is not only the love story of Zed and Adeline, but also the story of her great-grandmother's murder. Personally, I recommend reading this book to everyone who is at least 21 years old, not before. This story is disturbing and provocative at the same time, and if the audience is too young, there is a high risk that they won't have the ability to immediately distinguish between fact and fiction. So, if you are an adult and are willing to read something definitely out of your comfort zone, this series is for you. And the last series that closes today's video is The Hunger Games by Susan Collins. This book is very educational, compelling, engaging, and emotional. In my humble opinion, the book is way better than the film. But if you watch it before reading the book, don't worry. You will at least have a good general idea of this story. It is a dystopian story, or in other words, an imagined world or society in which people have a wretched, dehumanized, and fearful lives. Narrated in the first person by a teenager forced to live in a country ruled by a dictatorial regime, where hunger and fear reign, and where the powerful enjoy watching macabre reality shows. Even references to the arenas of gladiators and to the myth of ministry. The books are easy to read and gripping from beginning to end, even though they deal with dark subjects. Recommended for teen as well. Its worthy counterpart is undoubtedly Divergent by Veronica Roth. At one point, I was afraid to compare this book to The Hunger Games, but after analyzing it a little bit, I realized that there's no reason to. Because although the stories are different, the struggle is the same, since the protagonists live in a dystopian society. Divergent definitely gets its message across very well. As did the Hunger Games, an abnegate of the family must decide which of the 5 factions to join, and after the inconclusive aptitude test, where Tris discovers she's a divergent, which gives Tris the possibility of joining more factions, since according to the hierarchy, she's a dangerous person because she thinks individually. Tris chooses to join the Intrepids, the brave ones. After many vicissitudes, tears and blood, Tris becomes intrepid, but in addition to a faction, she also finds love and friendship. But it seems that the tranquility is destined to end. In fact, a war between factions will break out at some point, forcing our heroine to leave her family and make some very difficult decisions. We have reached the end of today's journey. I hope the books I've talked about have been of interest to you. If you have already read these books, please let me know what you think of them. Thank you for watching today's episode. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell and like this video. And if you want more content, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook, or you can listen to my podcast Into the Books, available on all streaming platforms. See you next time.